McCosker.
Good morning, Ms.
Welcome
Jones.
to our inaugural. Welcome to our inaugural edition of Regener8, a hearty podcast.
It's
So
so
welcome
wonderful.
to everyone who's tuning in.
And it's so wonderful to have everyone here. I have to say I'm a little bit nervous because this is my first sort of formal podcast, but everyone's told me just to relax, don't worry about it, it'll be fine. So I just wanted to share with everyone, we're really, really honoured to have the amazing Regrarians with us. So Lisa Doherty and Darren.
Darren
and Lisa from the Regrarians. We're really honoured. It's just so amazing with their wisdom and experience in this space for so many years, and so I'm just very, very grateful to that. I think for us to kick off, I'd just like to share with everyone our little story about our little charity Carbon8 and National Regener8 Day and how we started. So I'm a farmer. My husband Mike is a fourth generation farmer, and Kelly and I have had a friendship for a long time. She was a tree changer from Melbourne that moved up to New area in what we call heaven on earth, a beautiful part of northern New South Wales. And back in 2017, we had what everyone said was the worst drought since the 1900s. And $150 million of funds were raised to help support farmers, which was really wonderful. Just city people really wanting to put their hands in their pockets, and they were really wanting to, do what they could. And the money went to food packages and buyer bail programs. And, in terms of our experience, Mike and I have been teaching farmers about soil health and soil biology for 15 years. We've worked in Australia and the Pacific Islands and Asia. And we felt, we were just sitting at the kitchen table going, really, is this all that we can come up with, And there are some people out there like Darren and Lisa doing the most incredible things. So we felt like, well, imagine if we could create awareness around what is regenerative agriculture. So we started a day, a national day called the National Regenerative Agriculture Day. We had a budget of $150. Love it.
Better than 100.
So, Helen, it was really interesting from my perspective, when that drought hit, I remember us sitting around the kitchen table and thinking, well, is there really a solution to drought? Like, does drought have to be the Australian story forever? And if there is a solution, what is it? And why aren't the government funding that solution? Like, why are we not putting all our efforts behind finding that solution? And of course, that solution is in healing our soil. So that to me was the very first introduction I personally had to regenerative agriculture and what that meant. And that was the beginning of my journey into all of this. So for all the city goers out there, I was at this stage where you may be now a couple of years ago. And my gosh, haven't we come far? So the National Regen Ag Day, that was a huge feat for us, because how do you start a national day? We had no idea. And there was no books and no information and nothing to follow, no guide. So we literally had to make it up around that kitchen table, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. And it was such an amazing journey, and still with our $150. And my background, I'm actually an accountant. I'm a bean counter. So we did pretty well on that $150. So,
yeah, because my background's as an artist. So the accountant, the artist and the farmer came together as an excellent partnership. Total biodiversity right there.
Absolutely. I think we're going to be doing these podcasts every fortnight. So we'll be sharing all the amazing stories and our personal journey. But in terms of how Carbon8 came together, Mike has been on this, he really has been working with farmers for a long time, and he's known about carbon in the soil and all the incredible benefits that carbon has. So with our amazing artists, and knowing that how we connect with people is through beauty and the arts and communication and really simple messaging, we came up with Communicate, because 8%, imagine having 8% carbon in the soil. That would be one of our goals for Australians. You know, Australian farmers to have 8% carbon in the soil. So that's where the
Can I
carbonate
ask-
came in.
Can I ask you why we came up with that, Ms. McCosker? The 8%, why did we choose that mark?
Well, I think the 8% is, I can probably tell you a little story about back in the 1800s, and Darren and Lisa, you'd know this. I think that they measured the soil carbon levels at 18%. Is that right? Is that maybe a little bit lower?
Elaborate on that later, perhaps.
Yeah. Let's talk about that later. Anyway, it was like in the mid-teens. And now, on average, I think the CSIRO have said that our soils across Australia average less than 1%. We have lost so much of our soils, the carbon in our soils. So we felt like, a target of 8% was very grand. But, carbonate, the number 8 is a beautiful number. It's a number that represents, we use the infinity sign, and carbon, the word carbon is life. So it's a beautiful, that thing about carbon being life is really intrinsic to what carbonate stands for. It's all about
life and light.
Life and light.
Life and light. The 8% was the sustainable mark, wasn't it? So once we got a farmer to an 8% level, then their farm became sustainable. And everything after that was it moves them after that 8% into a abundance and thriving.
Yeah.
So I remember it being that was that sustainability mark.
Yeah.
And before that,
now,
you're solving problems. Yep.
Yeah. So now we have carbonate. And I think probably perhaps we can talk more about carbonate a little bit later on, but we have these incredible guys here that have just a wealth of knowledge and information. So we might...
Yeah, let's introduce them. Yes, so oh my gosh, so hello the Regrarians, and the amazing film that you guys produced several years ago called Polyfaces, and it was probably, I would say, one of the founding films on the topic of regenerative agriculture, and was a groundbreaker, literally. I love all the puns in our community, and this groundbreaking film literally paved the way for so many other films to come after you guys. So we're welcoming the founders of some radical and revolutionary mindsets. So we've got a 9-minute clip here just to showcase the film and introduce it to our audience who may not have seen it yet. What are you guys doing? Get out there and watch this film. And then we'll come into a bit of a Q&A. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Awesome. So Biggie, shall we get you to roll that film?
How do we make the change? If you really are passionate about this, the first step is up to you, and the second step can only come after you've taken the first step.
Today's radicals are tomorrow's conservatives. We've come here because this is probably the best farm in the world.
This place is what needs to be the new normal.
This farm was the armpit of the community. It was the most abused, worn out, gullied rock pile.
The pastures were very, very thin, and there were huge washed out gullies in the back. We called it the Badlands.
It had been raped for 200 years.
This is just amazing. It's like a jungle. It's such a breathtaking scene of activity. And this has been grazed about 5 times this year.
How do we use the natural proclivity of an animal to do work instead of machinery and petroleum? The principle here is strategic disturbance is the key to environmental innovation.
What makes this farm so different? I think it's all of the symbiotic relationships that mimic nature. You've got cows that are eating grass, you've got chickens that follow them and scratch through their manure eating bugs, then you've got turkeys following them eating bugs. You go up into the forest and you've got pigs. Then you come down and you've got people buying their food directly off the farmer, and then you've got all these young people who are learning off masters.
Farmers around began to see and realize that we were doing things a little differently than they were. They all thought we were kind of crazy, not plowing and planting and raising corn like they did.
It's immediately clear that this is different than other farms. The sheer quantity of life on this place.
Somebody's going to have to open our eyes and say, yeah, what he's doing is great, and it's building our country back up.
In 5 minutes, I can show you 10 things that Grandpa would have given his eye teeth to have. We are not anti-technology. What we like is technology that allows us to better biomimic the patterns. Dad just looked me in the eye and said, I just want to know, you really want this place for your life? I said, yes. And he said, I will never even think about selling this place again. You'll never hear it again. He never did.
You've got your blood family, but you can also have this incredible support group family that can be people you work with or people that support you, and that family can be huge.
The way we figure it,
the new frontier for us has been the people. Managing the people that are coming to see, handling the people that want to get involved, the interns, the apprentices, people grouping themselves based on belief.
I think it's important to be involved in the entire circle from when you have them as chicks to the very end, because I can ensure that they have the highest quality of life throughout the entire process.
Farming tends to be kind of viewed as a man's world, but in reality it's men and women working together to make it happen.
I'm convinced that there are a lot of people who, if they really thought they could, would do this.
If you don't have the character to do what it takes to get it done, then you need to just go get a factory job and show up when the boss says to show up and leave when the boss tells you to leave.
My mom is an incredible person and just has constantly been the one picking up the pieces.
Boy, the future. We don't know where we're going to be in 10 years. We don't know where we're going to be in 5 years. We just know that we're going to have to keep a good supportive team behind us, around us, in front of us at all times, and see where it goes.
I don't know what our kids are going to do yet. Right now they're just, killing bad guys and slaying dragons and things like that, but I hope, just like I caught that desire from my parents, I hope that at least one of them will catch that desire from me.
People across the world are copying what's going on here, and this farm is breeding a whole new kind of entrepreneur.
I like to call it living food. I grow it all the way through. I harvest it. It's hard to change people, but when you get good food in their mouth, they want to change themselves. I'm friends with chefs, and every one of them is jealous that I get to pick each tomato hand-picked that I will be using.
We use 90% of our produce from the local community. We change the menu at least every week, and it's based on the product coming in.
It's healthy. You don't have to go on a diet when you eat delicious food. Sometimes people say, oh, a diet means bad tasting food. For me, it's a diet is a lifestyle, just as my job is a lifestyle, and we eat really healthy and it's delicious. There's no better food.
Keep it decentralized and keep empowered people autonomous to create their own income packages and what they like to do.
Joel has always been kind of an out-of-the-box thinker.
If the Lord wants you to do this, He'll bring customers to you. And I said, just try it and see.
I oversee the buying clubs. That's kind of been my baby. I took it over from Uncle Art when it was about 30 people, and it was a perfect job for a new mom. It's grown to being from about 30 families to a little over 5,000 families.
The food movement is, about a lot more than food. It's really about community, and food has always been a way for forging community.
I think the farther away we get from the natural world that we evolved to exist in, the worse off we're going to be.
Once I found out that they were delivering, a couple miles from my house, I was all over it.
I would like to see more people be responsible for their own actions, not trying to point the blame to somebody else. You did this to me. Well, it's what you're putting in your body, and it's what you are doing and what you're doing to your kids and you're doing to your economy and environmentally.
We were blind to it for my entire time growing up, for 45 years. I didn't think about it. I just went to the supermarket like everyone else and picked up the package and assumed that things were always right with the world.
Most of us eat thoughtlessly, and that's how we got into this trouble.
People are just waking up because there's just all over. People are finding out about what's happening to our food system.
And the more they learn, the more they seek out different kinds of foods, and they eventually find their way to a farmer like Joel.
And then you start feeling better, which makes you have more energy for your family and to do more things, and you can't afford not to do it.
The idea that we could take beautiful food off the land and heal it at the same time, that's a very hopeful lesson, because it's bigger than food or farming. It suggests that as long as the sun shines, there is a free lunch, and that you can capture that energy and run it through a system and not diminish the world.
What we've seen here is the future face of our food system, how we grow it, buy it and eat it, and it really could be the thing that saves us.
This repopulating the land with farmers who build community is extremely gratifying.
You need people on these farms to run them and do them successful. And I think Joel's way is going to be the future.
You get the symbiosis of all those nests being in proximity. Now you've got a bunch of songbirds that are really singing some hallelujahs, and that's exciting.
An amazing tribute, the film that you've made. I just find it so fundamentally foundational to everything that's come after. And obviously we've got Kiss the Ground, which has just been launched on Netflix. But I really feel it, guys. You paved the way for so much to happen. So please introduce yourself to our audience and tell us all about your background and how you got to this very moment in time.
Wow. How many days do we have? Good morning, my name is Helen, and this is my very lucky husband, Darren Doherty.
Incredibly lucky.
Bizarrely, we had similar backgrounds because my parents had me at 43, so they were older parents. Darren's dad was killed in the Vietnam War, or the US War, as the Vietnamese call it. And so he grew up on his grandparents' farm, who were the same age as my parents. So we grew up with people who had gone through the Depression, and so bizarrely we had
and the Second World War.
And the Second World War. So we had sort of similar, upbringings with, being frugal, recycling, growing what you could grow, eating what you could grow, buying as local as possible. I remember, years ago when Darren and my brother did a permaculture course. This is like nearly 30 years ago. And my mum said, "What is permaculture?" And we talked about it. She said, "I've been doing that all my life." And I said, "Well, yes, it's common sense, but there's also some added, design and technology." So when we got together, we said...
When did we get together, darling?
1991?
Yeah, no, but remember?
Oh, we had too much champagne.
No, but before that.
Before that.
Well, I was managing the organic.
I think kids are watching.
Yeah, it's
Kids
okay.
are
It's completely fine.
It's
completely. Well, maybe PG. I'd left hospitality. I worked as a chef and as a waiter and whatnot after leaving school, and I took on the management of the organic greengrocer in Bendigo, which in about 1989, I think it was. And that opened me up to the world of all of the wonderful organic producers and pioneers of this part of the world, which is one of the epicenters of organic biodynamic production in the world. And one day I was, I think it was it Meredith sheep's yogurt? I think it was, anyway, it was the sheep's yogurt. And I was in the back, one of those walk-in fridges, and I was facing, because I love facing. I'm a bit OC.
Facing means turning the label to the front.
Having the labels and making it all look good. Anyway, I was doing that, and this young woman walked in and
to get my sheep's yogurt.
To get a sheep's yogurt. And
this is nearly 30 years ago.
And our eyes met.
Radical.
Across the sheep's yogurt, and it's been on since then. Although it took a couple of years because I'm quite shy, and Lisa, as it turns out, is not so shy, and being a thespian. And a couple of years later, we went to her sister's engagement, which was actually a wedding, and late at night, we'd had a few bubblies, and Lisa kicked the door, and we pashed, and it's been on ever since.
Pashed. That's so Australian.
We like to pash.
Yeah, we love a good pash.
So when we did actually have our first child, we said, we've brought a child into the world. We were already in our minds, I was brought up by my mother, who was a devout Catholic, but she was very spiritual, and it was all about honoring your body, which is the first temple, and then honoring nature. Like, she didn't drink, she'd have a port every now and then, and color and smell and nature was her drug. She said, I don't understand why anyone needs to take drugs, because go out to the garden, look at grubs, like, they're incredible. Look at, a flower grows, look, food grows from this little seed. So we had both been sort of brought up in that mindset. And then when we had a child, we said we have to do everything that we can to make this a better planet, because we've brought a child into it. And when we're sitting in our rocking chairs, we can sit back and relax, and not relax, hopefully we can relax, but we can sit back and say, whatever happens, we did our best. And so we've basically, like I say, I've been saying for a long time, we're like monks, except we're monks with benefits, because we do enjoy
We're not celibate.
We're definitely not celibate. And we do enjoy a nice organic tipple. But we have been very dedicated to this mission.
Perhaps too dedicated at times.
Yes, and we said to our children that we'll pay for their therapy for the rest of their lives, because they haven't had normal,
not at all.
normal upbringings. So we have questioned that over the years, like, our dedication to humanity, because as we know, the planet will survive in one way, one form or another. But, it's humanity that we are.
And all of the other species that well, we were supposed to be given domain if you follow the teachings of the Bible, and that domain has been disrespected. And so whichever way you look at it, it's stewards or having that domain. It's not a good outcome for the other species that we share this place with. So which is obviously very important as well, because you've got to have, and like Lisa was saying, you appreciate all of this beauty. I mean, it's wonderful seeing the great scenes that you two just find yourself in somehow, these beautiful forests and everything.
I've got my beautiful naked mother behind me.
Yeah.
God
rest her soul.
She did her final modelling sitting at 95 years of age, just before she passed away, which she actually won the People's Choice Award for the Olive Cotton, Photographic Portrait Award. So.
Yeah. But you've got all of that beauty in nature, and yet most people, they'll watch a David Attenborough film and that's where they'll appreciate it, or they'll go out fishing or whatever else, and they just don't they don't join the dots on what that actually takes to sustain, or let alone regenerate. So, and that's something that we're very cognizant of, and at least for me, that's one of the core motivations for doing what we do.
And we found that, I mean, we knew it anyway, but one year, I think we're on a 13-month world tour. And
2007.
And we worked with nearly every denomination, people who were you know, very devoutly,
new ones even.
Devoutly religious. We worked with Christians, Catholics,
Jews.
Was he Hindian? And
Hindus.
And what we were,
Ananda Marga.
wasn't it? Yeah, the Hugging Saint,
Armour.
Armour
Yeah,
followers.
Armour.
What we were sort of shocked, which we sort of knew, but it just was like came back to prove it, was that none of them really honoured the creation.
Yeah, they honoured worship, and that's what Joel Salatin pointed out in his great book, The Marvellous Pigness of the Pig.
Which he was pushing to US Christians, because they're very devout Christians, but a lot of them don't believe we have to do anything because Jesus is coming back and he'll save us. So
it's all about the worship. It's not about so let's celebrate the creation without celebrating the creation, which
I'd say if you believe in a creator, then why wouldn't you want to honour the creation? And that's how I was brought up. So it was sort of interesting that still now, with all that's going on, there's a lot of people who are deeply religious, but they don't connect with nature.
And so going back to Lisa's point before, we, on the day our first daughter was born, Isabella, on March the 6th, 1993, we both left our jobs. So Lisa was working at Telstra and I was working at the organic greengrocer, and that's the day we started our farm planning business. And that's what we've been doing ever since, because we both didn't want to be employed as parents. So which was a big leap. But we're brave people, so clearly, and we're brazen people, you might say at times as well. So off we went from there, and that's what we've been doing ever since. And, you know, with a shared purpose of responsibility to planet repair, and to the care of all species, and in particular humans and those around us. And also we're both foodies. We both like a good time, and a good time for us involves family being around, good friends being around, having great food, and whatever your choice of beverage around, and all of the rest of it. But that's all. And so through our lives, both coming from big families means big tables and loud, and life's a bit of a festival at times, but we've become pretty familiar with that.
And I think it was also like some of my friends and family members at the time said, what are you doing? You know, you've got a mortgage, like we just bought a house, we just had a baby, you know, Darren shouldn't be leaving his job. And I think, you know, when you take a leap of faith, you know, fortune favours the brave. It's about...
We're still learning. We're still wondering where that fortune is.
It's coming. It's coming.
There's a joke in California that every filmmaker, they start a GoFundMe page, and it's the same $50 being passed around.
Well, you'd appreciate, Helen, that the other joke is that how do you become a millionaire in agriculture? Well, you start with 10 million and you'll gradually get down to 1 million. Yeah, so
yeah. That's very true. That's very true.
Unfortunately.
I'd love to talk to you guys about, you know, we've found with the drought that happened, and how, you know, as farmers, when there is just a landscape that is brown and dead, how much it really weighs on your soul, how much it weighs on the impact that you have in your family and your community. And actually what we found was that it's actually the community togetherness that pulls you through, and it's very powerful. And I think, you know, it's amazing how we talk about the diversity in the soil, you know, the thing about community is the diversities in our communities that really make us thrive, and it's the same as in our soil. And I love that you guys are really, I think this is the reason why, because you really get community, then that's the way that you share your knowledge is through your essence of understanding community. Yeah, is that what you, I mean, I see that in...
We're both from big families, and then we both worked in hospitality. I think, you know, if everyone worked in hospitality or, say, you know, retail, where they're dealing with other, you know, humans that people would be much nicer. It's like hospitality is like a theatre, you know, you're performing every day and you're with a team. Our chef said the other day, teamwork makes the dream work. And like, we love people, we love socialising. I mean, you know, if we could retire right now and just socialise, we would be very happy.
You'd be like what that woman used to go on the John Howson show or whatever, the John and Mike Walsh show, Lily and Frank.
But yeah, I mean, it is all about community. Like we love people. We've started a new cafe gallery in Castlemaine called Creamtown, and
it's very busy.
It's very busy, and we started it because when COVID hit, our eldest daughter started an online art shop for artists affected financially by COVID. She's an amazing go-getter, so she started this online art shop, which
I think has
sold over $100,000.
I think it's at to $150,000, which has been most of that's gone to artists.
Yeah, she doesn't get much out of it. It's gone to the artists.
They didn't get any subsidies, of course.
And then we had another daughter working at a cafe, and their son-in-law was doing a couple of baristaships there, and they closed down and they weren't going to reopen. So our kids didn't get JobKeeper. So we thought, well...
Or Job Seeker.
They didn't get any financial support. So we thought, we offered to, you know, put in and buy it, and then at least they would have a job. And Isabella got a Regional Arts Victoria grant for $10,000 to actually open an actual gallery.
Yeah.
So it all worked out. It's been, you know, just working really organically. And we have the most divine customers that come in because they want to see us stay open. So some of them coming twice a day because they love the community. You know, we have this gorgeous little community that most of them are artists, musicians, you know, producers, film producers. There's a lot of European people. I mean, anyone is welcome. We welcome anyone, but it's this beautiful community that feels comfortable. It's like a home away from home, and it's just an extension of our home.
It's an extension of our table.
Yeah, because we love socialising and we love being around people, and
we're in a unique position because, well, particularly myself and Lisa. Like I know all pretty well, I won't say all, but a lot that there is to go with food production and food and fibre production. And so we're quite assiduous in the back end of that when we look at our supply chain. So that which is unusual. I mean, we know that there's certification programs out there and whatnot that exist. Perhaps they're not as holistic as the framework that we or the lens that we look at things through. And we thought about this for a long time because since I left the organic shop nearly 30 years ago, effectively, we've continued to be consumers as we all are, but at the same time have worked at the back end with all of the producers that we have. And then working all around the world, we continually look at the way that things are produced and the way that things are presented. Like if you go to a restaurant, it's often that we're very disappointed about the way that the hard work that people go to produce food and fibre is not represented well when it comes to it being put on a plate or put in a package and sold to its end consumer. So it's been a really great...
Sorry, can I interrupt?
Sure.
What does that look like? You know, there's a lot of people probably watching now that don't really know much about their food and don't really sort of like, oh, what does that mean? What does that mean? Could you be a little bit...
Well, I suppose, I mean, there's that great old saying, from Voltaire that you shouldn't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, and that's been really hard for us because, you know, we have pretty high standards and we are always looking, and that's a real challenge for a lot of folk, and you can cause yourself a bit of stress from that because you know, you're trying to be so organic or so whatever. You know, you're trying to recycle everything, you're trying to buy all the right packaging and all of the rest of it. But that's something that we, I suppose, because we've been involved in this industry for so long, and we have a pretty clear mind about what we want, and we're in a space right now that it takes a bit of effort. There's no doubt about that. But we're in a space right now when it's absolutely possible that someone who is in the retail position can actually present the full suite of what we might call, or what might fit in with the remit of regenerative agriculture restaurant, you might say, or regenerative agriculture, because it goes, when we look at that, it goes to, well, how do we set up our people frameworks, the way we treat each other, how does it go with, and the way that we employ people and manage our teams, communicate, but also with all the packaging that you use, because you can't avoid that, the detergents that you use, not using a plastic scrubbing brush, using one that's made from a natural material with a wooden handle, and on it goes. There are so many little details, and they transfer into your household, and that's something Lisa's been, you know, really, really conscious of trying to work with people at the courses that I've taught over the years. You might want to talk about that.
Well, I just say, you know, you're voting with your dollar, and who you support with your dollar is continuing, you know, that business. So if you don't want to support companies that are, you know, helping to destroy the planet, stop buying their products. Every dollar you spend, you can either support, you know, a local regenerative farmer or, you know, producer of something, or you can support a multinational that does not give a damn about the environment. And when you simplify your life, when you bring everything back in, like, you know, we've had a lot of people over the years say to us, oh, you should be vegan, you should be raw foods, la, la, la. We know our bodies, we know our digestive systems, we know it works for us. But also we eat, you know, probably 95% from
Macca's.
That was in the letterbox. That was in the letterbox. We eat from you know, like half an hour away. Everything that we buy is organic, biodynamic, spray-free, and it's literally within about an hour around us. We buy our meat in bulk. We buy, you know, the biodynamic farm is only 20 minutes away. We buy our biodynamic wine straight from the producer. You know, everything. We just look at how can we simplify our lives and also support people that are into regenerating the landscape. Then you put it in the freezer or the pantry. It's there. We don't hardly ever go to a supermarket. I can't think.
And there's no conversation in a supermarket apart from that moment when you get to the end. And even now in a lot of supermarkets, people are opting out of that because you can go to a automated till. So,
and people say, oh, it's too hard.
Which it's not.
It can be in the beginning, but once you've worked out, okay, who am I buying from? You know, there's farmers markets nearly everywhere you go, or there's
farmers nearly everywhere you go,
and they will deliver. You know, if you're not near a farmers market, but there's a farmer a couple of hours away, you can connect with your friends and say, okay, I want to buy from this farmer 2 or 3 hours away. How about we take our eskies, buy bulk? You know, there's always choice, and well, not always, but, you know, for most of us that are privileged, there is choice, and it's about doing some research. And a good place to start is a farmer's market or your local organic, you know, shop, or your local co-op. Co-ops are fantastic.
And community gardens is a great place as well.
Community
really
gardens, go down and get into your community garden.
Particularly the people in the cities, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And you'll be amazed at how a lot of people have never put their hands in soil you know, they've never grown anything. And you know, we've got friends that work all over the world in different scenarios. So we've got friends in Cleveland who work with teens that have, you know, had a bit of a rough upbringing, and they get them doing gardens behind cafes and restaurants. So they're growing the food and then they're training to be chefs. And like, you know, planting a tomato seedling and then eating a tomato. That they just...
Or just establishing some understanding that there's cycles, whether it's work cycles, work processes, there's life cycles, there's life processes. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a chef. It means that they're just going to create some understandings which can then go into other ways in life. So,
but also, you know, it's proven now that soil releases, when you put your hands in the soil, it actually releases powerful hormones that are actually like an antidepressant. I mean, my mum was a gardener her whole life, lived till she was 95, you know,
no medication.
No medication. She did have arthritis, but even that sort of,
well, that was weak, probably.
Yeah, she sort of managed and, you know, died in her own bed on no medication. And she had her hands in soil every day. And that's actually coming out as fact that, you know, getting your hands in soil reconnects you and just makes you feel happy.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I think, and I've just watched Kiss the Ground, which is probably a really great segue, but, you know, the monoculture crops where plants are not speaking to each other.
But no one to speak to.
No one to speak to. They're depressed.
It's a lonely world.
They're alone. It's a lonely world. It's a bit like a COVID world, a little bit for a plant, a monoculture crop.
It's social distancing farming.
Social distancing farming.
Monoculture crops.
Yeah. We should do a meme for that one, Kelly Jones.
Yeah.
Well, these new chicken McPieces from McDonald's don't look like they're socially distanced.
Yeah. And a McNugget bubble. A McNugget bubble of two.
I won't bring it out anymore.
Yes, please.
Yeah, and so you've got this soil, when you've got the diversity in the soil. So this is the difference, you know, bringing in the multi-species crops and the multiple community of different communities and different diversities. That's actually what the benefits are in us and I think our awareness in you know, teaching this and sharing this information is really amazing. And I think you know, that's probably where, if you connect that community and the analogies of that, I think for people who haven't actually had that experience of being out in the soil, you know, working with soil or understanding about gardening, you can always relate at a community level. So I think that's very powerful. Yeah.
Well, some of the best times in European history, especially when there's been great clashes between Islamic populations and Jews and Christians, you know, the great Abrahamic religions have been what they've called the conviviencias, and they existed in Sicily and Napoli and in Spain prior to the Catholics coming back and so on. And they were great periods when you had this great diversity of people, in that case of very different faiths, all living together in relative harmony. And I think that's, when I think of the word, I mean, it's just a beautiful word, conviviencia. And I think of that as it applies to agriculture and all sorts of life, because that's, you know, there is competition in nature. It's usually in a pulse. But there's more stasis in ecological communities than there is that pulse of conflict or change or disruption or whatever you want to call it. But from that pulse, and this is where I think we need to get to in our understanding of succession, because a lot of what we're dealing with here is succession. Managing ecological succession is, whether it's as humans or whether it's the ecologies that we manage, to understand that if we understand that and take the time to understand that, then that can actually be a step forward. It doesn't need to be a step back, because so often it is a step back. that when you have a disturbance, it's a real step back instead of being a step forward. And that's one of the great things about I think the regenerative agriculture or regenerative culture, whatever you want to call it, movement, is a lot of it's framed within holistic management, and holistic management gives us a wide array of tools to be better decision makers and to understand the foundations of why we are and who we are as individuals and as communities, and that then translates onto our landscapes as well and how they're managed, which is really, it's a unique period in time from that perspective, because we haven't ever really had that as a foundation. Thank you,
It
Ellen.
definitely feels like it's shifting, though. I mean, would you agree that we're going to come out of whatever's happening in this worldwide experience right now into a brave new world where the obvious solutions, the things that are so obvious to everyone, starts to manifest and be funded on a worldwide scale? I mean, do you guys feel that we're going to be moving into that timeline now?
My mum used to always say that common sense isn't very common anymore. And but what we have, there doesn't feel like there's a lot of common sense happening at the moment with what's going on. But what we have found, which we feel is extremely positive, is that we have about 2,000 farmers around the world on our online forum. And so many of them are saying that, you know, they can't keep up with their orders. So that is a huge positive, that people straight away, people straight away thought, okay, I need good nutrition. And
I need it locally.
Yeah, I need it locally because who knows what's going to happen. And so they started looking for local producers, which I think is a huge positive. And
I mean, we're psychologically blueprinted. You see it every time that there's any sense or skerrick of scarcity that is coming your way, then there's something that's built into us that will go in particular directions, and it will be, who's around me? Am I safe? Are the ones that I love safe? What are the resources that are as immediate as possible? And you see that people start, you know, scavenging toilet paper, or, you know, all of the tomato cans. Like they bought 1 or 2 cans of tomatoes for their whole life, and now they buy 3 trays and truckload of dunny paper or whatever it is, you know. But there's all of those things that people will, and it's not, these are people who've never even had to think that way, because everything's, I mean, in the great human feedlot of the world, they've never had to do that before, because everything's there on a plate. You've never had to deal with scarcity. So
have you heard of, you would know about the 100 monkeys?
I've refreshed my memory. I've heard that. Go on. I've heard of it, but I'll need.
Yeah, so the 100 monkeys is actually they did some study on monkeys on 2 different islands, and I don't know exactly, can't quite recall exactly the details, but on one island the monkeys actually worked out that if they took their nut or whatever and they could wash it,
it was a potato.
It was a potato.
The scientists were feeding.
They were Irish.
There was 5 islands, and the scientists were feeding the monkeys potatoes. And on one island, this is off Japan. Sorry, continue, Helen.
No, it sounds like you know the story a lot better than I. I'm just making it up as I go along by the sound of it.
Yeah.
Which is a great
It's a fundamental story.
They like salty nuts.
Potatoes.
Basically, the scientists observed that on one island, the monkeys suddenly started taking their potato down to the water and washing it and then eating it. And so they observed this shift in the evolution of the monkey's process with the potato. But then what they observed, which astounded them, is that 5 islands away, with no communication on any level was possible, intuitively and instinctively the next day, that group of monkeys started doing exactly the same thing, and it mirrored. So there's a conscious telepathic awareness that once we evolve at some capacity as a species, it's downloaded to the rest of us automatically. So that's sort of the 100 monkey syndrome. So I mean,
what's called convergent evolution. Yeah.
My
Yes.
grandmother used to have potato every day, otherwise she would feel quacky, which I presumed meant,
Quacky.
Going a little monkey on the other island.
And then my mum was the same. If we didn't have, when we were caring for my mum, if we didn't have potato every day, she said, "Did we have potato yesterday? I'm feeling a bit quacky."
Yeah, there's a natural chemical in potato, especially the skin. Actually, if you roast the skin of a potato, it actually acts as a very powerful antidepressant. And they actually use it, to deal with depression. So it is really interesting the time we're in right now, because obviously everyone's been locked down. Everyone's been in this scarcity model and lots of uncertainty, and no one knows what's happening. And there's a natural pendulum swing as we go through this for people to want to return to their gardens, return to the land. Like there's a natural pendulum swing for us to return to the truth, which always resides in the natural environment. So I feel like coming out of this pandemic, there is going to be a massive shift of people, like a slingshot of people returning to understanding nature, sourcing and becoming sovereign with their food chain again.
I think I've used the term parallel economies a lot over a number of years. I think that personally, I think that you're right. I think what we're going through is a pulse, and I don't believe that there's going to be a wholesale shift by every person on the planet who's been through this. I think there'll be certainly a rise, and there's a number of factors, that things like the media of Kiss the Ground and their wonderful film and others that are out there, that's going to help, particularly in the US. Like you said, a lot of people are starting to look around because of scarcity. They're gardening more. I mean, Bunnings and all of these shops have sold out of seedlings, and they had restrictions on how many seedlings that you could buy, and veggie seedlings and all that. And that's all fantastic. I think that's all great. But then you've got another side which is very much looking at this as being a pharmacological. There's a pharmacological set of solutions, and there's a whole array of regulatory solutions and so on. And because a lot of people believe science, and so and they have every right to in a lot of ways, but I think that'll probably prevail as well. And unfortunately, in a lot of ways, that's the dominant orthodoxy that runs our lives. And so I think, if anything else, personally, that we're probably going to find that those parallels are going to perhaps, like, you could avoid each other a bit more before, but now those parallels are going to start to clash. So, for example, Lisa and I have travelled a lot over the last 15 years internationally, and it's probably fairly likely that we will have vaccination certificates, and there'll be a vaccination requirement on a passport to travel, and using, as we know, probably fairly experimental vaccines. And I don't personally have a problem with that, but that they will be things that where the orthodoxy is going to come up against perhaps the parallel path, and people like us are going to go, we'll probably opt out of doing it.
Well, I would definitely be opting out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see. I look at health as good health and nutrition as being a foundation to the protection against diseases, particularly the disease type that we have in front of us right now. I mean, it's not smallpox, and it's not tuberculosis. So it's not one of those really super high order diseases, which is a take-all disease, which we've had over the period of the human journey, which have, wiped out 80% of populations or more. It's not one of those diseases. So we don't see, therefore, that that will have the complete rosy picture, but it's going to be a step perhaps a bit forward to that. And any more that we can get. But I'm just curious about the clashes that's going to cause, which we're already seeing, especially in a social media rich environment where a lot of people are having a lot of clashes online, because you're either with that way or you're against that way, and those, it's either you're with the full health, not vaccinating, blah, 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 blah sort of way, full, live out of your garden, eat organic food sort of direction, or you're on the other side where it's full pharmacological solution and full sanitation, mask wearing, follow the directions of government, etc. And it'll be interesting to see what sort of conflict that engages in or results in. So that's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely seen it in the like we could make the analogy within our farming practices. We've lived an industrial farming world. We've poured the chemicals on. We've sterilized. We've fertilized. We've monocultured. We've tried. It's like it runs through our entire human experience. Really, this moment we're in right now is sort of like the final. It feels like that final moment of dynamic explosion, if you like. So what comes out of this is going to be, I hope and feel that it will be truth. And to me, truth is in holistic nature and holistic approach to life and holistic approach to our attitudes on all topics to do with that process. So I have faith that we're moving into a brave new world, and this is a great awakening for the whole planet, across every cultural situation, every part of our lives, our food chain, our education, our governmental systems, all of it.
Well, a great agricultural economist, John Eichert, I think he's from Iowa, he said that in the movie Fresh years ago, which is a great film, the greatest thing that Americans fear is inconvenience. And this is an inconvenient time, and it's how you respond to that inconvenience. And so I think that goes, like, again, it's these two ways that some people have responded really positively to that, to the apparent inconveniences, and then others haven't. As we talked offline earlier, I mean, a lot of people have unfortunately taken their own lives. And there's a lot of controversy about the numbers on that, as we've discussed, and perhaps more than have actually died. We don't, I don't want to go into all of that because it's just, this whole thing is a statistical nightmare, but a minefield. But there's a lot going on that's very difficult to follow, and if you're a general person, it makes it really difficult to be a decision maker. But you're right, coming back to home, what are the things that you can be in control of? You can be in control of a square metre of soil or 10 square metres of soil. You can be in, we're really lucky. We still have the convenience of choice that we can choose who we buy from. And that's, the supply chains are really helping with that, even within conventional supermarkets and so on.
I do think, I wanted to comment on what Darren was saying. I mean, there has been a lot of talk on social media about, staying home, doing yoga, doing meditation, getting your Zen. And I think it shows a lack of understanding of what's actually happening in your community, and it shows privilege when people can say that, because
you're opting out.
Well, we don't know. There's been so much domestic violence, there's been people with mental health issues, and what I found was that a lot of people weren't actually understanding what other people were going through. Like, you're in a state of privilege if you can, and we admit that we have been. Like, we've had our family here, so we haven't had to be concerned about that, and we opened a cafe, which has been incredibly hard work, but we're strong together. We love each other, support each other. So I just wanted to honour all those people who have been doing it really tough, and I don't feel like they have been heard or seen and validated.
No, they're collateral in a way to all of this and a lot of the decisions, because we're doing it together. Well,
we're not, that's what politicians say, we're all in this together. That's actually not true at all, because they're not a single mum with no support. They're not a young person with, mental health issues. They're not a blind woman who wanted to come into our cafe and she didn't have a photo ID.
with a postcode on it.
You know,
so she has to fill out a form so she can sit down and have a cup of tea. I mean,
you know, I just
yeah, life's hard.
Our elderly,
you know.
So I just wanted to speak to all those people who I think politicians and social media have not been actually validating their experiences in this whole, last 6 months. Yeah, I've been sending a lot of love to all those people.
Yes, and we've been staying off social media for as much as possible because it's we can all very easily get caught up in that, in the disquiet that comes from keyboard conversations.
Yes, well, I also want to say that we've been in this business nearly 30 years, and a lot of people would say to us, "Oh, how can you do this? Like, isn't it depressing when you know what's going on?" And I would say, actually, it's uplifting. And people say, "What, do you have hope?" And I'd say, no, I don't have hope. I have a deep knowing in my heart and my soul and in every cell of my body, because we know how many thousands and thousands of people are doing incredible projects all over the world that don't get any media attention. They're just doing it in their own little backyard, in their own suburb, in their own community. And all that has a ripple effect, going out to our gorgeous global village. And so I always say to people, like Kelly was saying, just have a deep knowing that there is incredible change happening all over.
Yeah. That's
the largest
parallel.
The largest underground movement in the world. That's what this is.
Well,
it is the largest.
Yeah. And my mum used to say, why are they spending billions of dollars trying to go to space when we've got a world under our feet that, even a lot of people who go and study science, agronomists, they don't actually fully understand it. I mean, it was only how long ago that
glomalin was discovered.
Yeah, was that 1993?
Yeah.
By a female soil scientist. It's like the world underneath us is the most important thing.
Yeah, our favourite saying is take heart, for the Earth's ability to regenerate has been vastly underestimated. And, that one statement is really, really powerful in terms of, even when you're having a conversation and there's a sense of a loss of hope and a sense of feeling really down, that's like one of the things that, and only because you see that in nature time and time again, like weeds, the story of weeds and how weeds are just so prolific, and there's a reason why they're there, so and I think
after a fire within days you see green shoots, coming out.
Yes. So
our own health, our own state of health and the environment is always in a state of regeneration. It's what we do to our body and what we do to the environment, but it's continually in a state of regeneration.
Yeah, your hair still grows when you've died.
Like my acupuncturist said, he believes that everyone is meant to live till 100. It's just what we do to our body. Living till 100 is not, it's possible for nearly all of us, depending on what we do to our body. And it's the same with our beautiful environment.
Yeah.
Well, I hope what, for me personally, coming out of this very explosive moment in human history, which I am referring to as the Great Awakening, as we come out of this Great Awakening, we absolutely own our choice, but we can also acknowledge that there has been some type of agenda that has poisoned so many of our options. So the food chain has been very damaged by poisons in our air and our water and our industrial, and so every single thing it seems to have geared towards using things that harm us and harm the planet. And I feel like the Great Awakening is that shift where we will start to offer a non-consent to those practices that we as a community, and I know for me personally, every single person I know is doing amazing stuff. I mean, everyone I know is involved on some level in a grassroots organization, a community organization, some form of underground, community-based, solution-orientated project or organization. And I would say that's true of all of us here today, that our whole communities, and this is us magnified across the entire world right now, the consciousness of humanity has risen. And that's what I feel like we're coming out of after this huge moment of, well, I call it disclosure, but whatever word you want to call it, but basically this moment of truth. And that's where I feel like we stand right now. And regenerative agriculture, to me, is sort of like the solution, the foundational solution to so many of our chains and cultural understandings and infrastructure. It is like the foundation of our food, of our natural environment, of our soil health, of our biodiversity, of the health of our animals and our wildlife kingdoms. Like, it fully is the fundamental granddaddy, if you like, of all solutions.
Grandmama.
Grandmama. What am I saying? Absolutely, grandmama. Yes, the rise of the divine feminine, for sure, Mother Earth. Duh.
Yeah, so it's really. Yeah, so let's talk about Kiss the Ground, and the reason why is that this movie, and you guys have actually been working with Kiss the Ground, the group, for quite a number of years. And the thing about this particular movie that resonates is because it's really for that audience that actually doesn't know a lot about, what's going on in this agriculture space. And that is I think everyone really is opening their eyes to this knowledge, and Kiss the Ground is, I think, a really great way for that first start. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think, as we mentioned off air, Lisa and I watched it on the same night that Charlie Massey and his family were featured on Australian Story, which, as I mentioned, the poignancy of because we had to stop watching Kiss the Ground halfway through to watch the Australian Story, and then we went back. So we watched it as filmmakers, as we often watch films, and because it's in our industry, you might say. And the poignancy wasn't lost from the way that we, when we did the treatment for Polyfaces, we said we wanted to have David Attenborough style cinematography combined with the narrative style of Australian Story, and do that for an American audience, because we pitched Polyfaces primarily to the American soccer mum, so to speak. And I think that when we looked at Kiss the Ground, I think that they'd accomplished that really, really well. We did it as best we could with the budget that we had and the experience that we had. But Kiss the Ground, used graphics. They used really, really modern graphics. Their cinematography was outstanding. I think the assembly of characters, we chose with Polyfaces to focus on one farming family, but I think that their choice of assembly of characters to tell the story was really good, because they didn't go for the usual talking heads who are always on this kind of film. It was great to see people like friends of ours, Donegal and Eric Marketgard, who we've worked with for years, and we've stayed with them and become really good friends. And then people like Gabe Brown, who's emerging as quite a giant in this space, and so on. So it was good to see people who weren't necessarily big names in the space, but they did a really great job with the cinematography. And look, it's always hard for when you're in the game and you watch a film to sort of turn off and sort of go, oh gee, this is a bit light. But the reality is that that's where some of this has got to be, because you've got to meet people where they are. So from that perspective, I thought it was a really great piece, and I really hope that it really goes well for them. And it was interesting because we, as you said, we work closely with them. I was asking them recently about the demographics, some of what are some of the metrics that they're getting back from Netflix, and unfortunately they haven't had those supplied, like in terms of what's the demographic of who's been watching it. Because I felt, as a lot of other people have, that the movie is probably more pitched to the soccer mum, as it were, again, to the consumer. not the farmer, because it's probably just a bit too light on the agricultural nitty gritty details, which, if you were to make a popular film, probably wouldn't excite a broader audience. So, and farmers unfortunately aren't the broader audience. So, we realised years ago that after many years of doing the opposite, that the people who will change agriculture will not be farmers; they'll be consumers, because they drive the land, and so, and that's
it's
why.
really interesting, Darren, because where Carbon8 is putting on a film festival right now. So every Friday night we do an online screening of a really wonderful regenerative agriculture film. And this Friday on the 23rd, so this Friday at 7 p.m, we're actually screening Kiss the Ground. And we've sold, I think, over 1,500 tickets online, which is amazing. But most of them are actually women. So, you know, I think, and it's really incredible and not surprising, really, that it's actually women that are driving this whole space.
Yeah.
You know, I just think about my personal journey of being an accountant, marrying a farmer, and starting that journey and awareness around, you know, the way agriculture works. And it actually, for me, I think for a lot of women and family farms, it's actually when you start having children. And, you know, if there's a spray going on and you're like, I'm leaving the house today because they're spraying. And so then you think about, well, if the grain's getting sprayed and I'm taking my kids out of the house so that I'm looking after my kids, well, what the hell are we doing? What is it that is actually real about who we are and who as farmers and what we're growing and who are we growing for? Like, so and it's like that, and it's not a light bulb moment. It's like, you know, I've always been into, you know, nutrient dense food and all of that, but that awareness and understanding, then the conversation comes from the mum about, actually, I think we need to start doing things differently. Mm-hmm. So that this space of women leading the charge on regen is really powerful. And also, again, the consumers, that soccer mum, you know, the mums at home. And I've got a really beautiful story to tell you about when Mike and I were first sort of, we went down to Sydney, actually, and we were doing the promos on Carbon8 and all the stuff that we were doing with National Regen Ag Day. And a woman got in touch with us and she sat down, Carolina Botta, amazing, beautiful woman who was a city mum. She had a little 4-year-old and she had just heard about this regenerative agriculture, and we sat down and we told her about the incredible benefits of regenerative ag and how, you know, what the effects of sequestering carbon and really bringing the carbon to the soil. She actually started to cry. And she said, oh my God, Helen, I had no idea. I thought that we were doomed, that there was nothing that we could do. And it was really extraordinary for me because, you know, we've been on farming and we do, you know, you just get on with getting on. And just that one precious discussion was like, oh my gosh, there is actually a way that we can connect with our city people and really share our experiences. And it's actually not the farmers that have the solution either. It's all of us that have the solution. It's all of us in all the, as you said, Lisa, it's in the decisions that we make every day with what we purchase. So, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's what, like Charles Massey talks about that when he went around and interviewed, you know, all the farmers who changed to a more holistic approach with farming, that it was an illness often, or, you know, a huge amount of stress or loss of finances that made them look more into regenerative agriculture. And you look at who usually looks after whoever's sick in the family, you know, without being sexist, it's usually the mum.
It's a female.
And, you know, if a child has allergies, she's, you know, often the one who finds out what foods are going to help with the allergy, or finds a naturopath that's, you know, going to soothe the eczema. And so you're exactly right. You know, I say to people, most people trust politicians and governments that whatever they're buying on shelves in any shop, pharmacy, supermarket is safe. And unfortunately, that's not true. I mean, there was timber filings in baby formula, years ago. What was it like? Melon.
Oh no, that was melamine. That's not timber.
What was it? Plastic.
Plastic. Yeah,
I mean, you just look at things that have happened around the world with food. You have food grown in Chile that goes to China and then gets packed in New Zealand, and it's a product from New Zealand. I mean, and then you have people ending up in hospital because of what they've caught from berries that, you thought came from New Zealand. So we can't trust that the governments are actually checking on every food product that we're buying. And you need to do a little bit of research. Whatever you're putting on your skin, whatever you're spraying, perfume, whatever candles you're burning, anything, unfortunately, whatever detergents you're using, toilet sprays, the things that you plug into the little socket that has perfume coming out. I mean, a lot of it's just chemicals. A lot of it's carcinogenic. I mean, the average woman is putting, up to 200 different carcinogenic products on their body in a day. If you're using a conventional deodorant, makeup, body lotion, perfume, you're basically being inundated with these carcinogenic, toxic, chemicals. And a lot of people don't know that. They think that anything they buy has been checked. And so, when Charles said a lot of farmers, they get an illness, what illnesses are they getting and what chemicals are related to those illnesses? They called it the farmer's cancer because so many.
There are a lot of farmers.
Oh yeah.
A lot of farmers with a lot of serious illnesses.
Yeah, we've got a friend who's Kate Roberts. What's she?
She's an OT.
Yeah, an occupational therapist. She did her own. Well, years ago, she was working in the Mallee in northern Victoria, and she was trying to correlate because she was coming into these communities with her job. And just noticing that there was a lot of illnesses.
High Parkinson's, MS, brain tumours, cancers. And she worked with doctors and nurses and farmers in the area. And they, it was only on one specific agricultural chemical because I suppose that, made it easy for them to research. But yeah, she sent us the study. And there
was a lot of linkages. Anyway, she was trying to join the dots that the medical community were not joining because they were just doing their job. And it's not their job to be researchers. It's not their job necessarily to put the red flags up. And as you would well know, being part of a farming community, if you're the person, Helen, if you're the person putting the red flag up, sometimes, well, you're putting your head up as well. So that's,
we have found in our
understand that. But I was interested to hear what Lisa would say about Kiss the Ground because we haven't actually talked about it. So what you thought about the film?
Well, when we did Polyfaces, we said there's enough negative docos out there. We didn't want shots of,
spraying.
Plain spraying. We didn't want shots of chicken, factory farm chicken. We didn't want shots of factory farm pork. We wanted to show a positive family and how much
a real family,
but how much they were affecting the community within a 3-hour radius. So now Polyface actually does send their food further than the 3 hours because of the demand, because people were in areas where they couldn't get any food and they said, why can't you send it to us? But when we filmed them, they were only sending their food within a 3-hour radius. And we didn't want to show anything negative. We didn't need to. I mean, we had 50 hours of footage and it was all positive. We did miss out on the hurricane, which was not positive. It was very negative and it wiped out all their chickens.
Yeah, they found chickens in other districts, which is horrible. I mean,
but that's a part of farming and we weren't able to get we weren't in the area at the time and we weren't able to get a camera person there to film that, which was a shame because we did want to show, you know, every aspect of the farm. But so when we came up with the brief for Polyfaces, that was, you know, people were saying, our editor was saying, you need something negative.
You need some drama.
You need drama. And
because there's a narrative that goes through a film, and I suppose, and, you know, Kiss the Ground, well, that film probably showed the least amount that I've seen in the normal genre of the negative stuff. And they sort of went to the usual, or what I would say is the usual ills of industrial ag to provide that.
And it's a bit like Shakespeare. Like to get the rock star audience, you need a bit of drama, don't you?
Yeah, that's right.
We are the drama. We're living the drama.
Oh my God.
Do
we are
drama.
Yeah, my brother, high maintenance. You know, we are drama queens, high maintenance people.
But what did you think of the film?
Yeah, I thought it was, you know, it was pitched to an audience that can change the face of agriculture.
Yeah.
That's, you know, and it was for people who don't necessarily haven't been in this space long or don't know very much. And, you know, they're lucky that they had an amazing, I'm assuming, a high budget. I mean, we had saved $150,000 to build our house, which we then spent on making the film. And I did a lot of fundraising just within our beautiful network of clients and friends to get our film finished. But yeah, it's beautifully shot, and I'm pretty tired because I've been doing 13-hour days, so I'm trying to remember back.
Probably should watch it again. Well, we can watch it on the on what time is
Friday
it?
Night.
Friday night. Make it a day.
Yeah, Friday night, 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And then at 8:30 we'll have our panel. So we've got good old Charlie Arnott, the pin-up boy of Regen. We all love Charlie.
Yeah, I don't quite have the chest hair. So.
Yeah.
Or the kerchiefs. He doesn't own a kerchief. You do own a few bow ties, though.
And also Rachel Treasure. So Rachel, I actually had a beautiful conversation with Rachel last week. For those of you who don't know, Rachel's actually an Australian novelist and a journalist.
Rachel Treasure.
Yes.
Rachel has been a big supporter of
Lust in the Dust.
Lust in the Dust.
She actually she organised a screening of Polyfaces in Burnie years ago.
Yeah.
She's been a great supporter of our work.
Yeah, her books are...
My mother did read one of her books in her early 90s.
And because she sent us some, didn't she? Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
I think
the books. Sorry,
I think Lust in the Dust would be a fantastic title for a Regener8 documentary. I think we'd be like, go so far.
Well, Rachel's got a few books that might be part of.
Is it really Lust in the Dust? Is that the real title?
Oh, that's what a few people call that particular genre. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
What she does.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You know, blending those two worlds of romance, fiction,
and regenerative agriculture.
It's fantastic.
Who would have thought?
And there are some really, it's been interesting over the journey, especially the last few years, the rise of women because in this space, because just a few years ago, well, over the years, a lot of people have come to us with our position in the space and said, oh, do you know, who can we get some people to come, who do you know that can come to a conference or can be speakers or that sort of thing? And a lot of the time when we've tried to do it, we've tried to, because just the way we think, we've often looked at it. And I remember years ago, and this is very PG, maybe a little bit over.
Is it in the code of silence?
No,
just between us.
No, yeah, just between all of us and your enormous audience. We did this course in California years ago, and in 2016 actually, and it was nearly all males. And Susan Cassano, who's from Canada, she's an ecologist. She came along and goes, "Oh God, this is."
Hold on. Is this PG?
Yeah, no, she said this is a whole sausage fest here. Where's the clams? And we
tacos.
Tacos, that's right.
That's not PG, Darren.
That's not PG, but it's symbolic of where the space is in a way, because and we've always been pretty conscious of that, being just trying to have
where are the women, you know?
Yeah, where are the women in this?
Like so many conferences that we've been asked to attend and they've given us who's coming. It's like, where are the women?
Yeah, where are the people of colour? You know, where's the diversity, etc.? Where are the Indigenous people? I think it's BIPOC now. I think it's cool. So, you know, where is all of this? Because it's so absent. You know, because often the conversation is about diversity, but it's not often. It's still the same. It's still the same white guys who are doing it. And so it's been. I'm just looking at my bookshelf, one of my bookshelves here, and you know, the likes of people like Nicole Masters, who's, you know, we first met her or came across her in 2010 when we started the Regener8 series in 2009, and we worked with her in New Zealand over there. She was just on the rise then, and you know, people like her have done an amazing job as communicators with the true understanding. I mean, she's a Rigi-Dig agronomist and agroecologist, so she's a serious performer on that level, but at the same time a serious performer as a speaker and as a storyteller. And a lot of people, it's been really, we just heard, and it's interesting because we just heard one of our family friends who we've known for 30 odd years, who are conventional farmers. And I sent them a copy, as I do. I send copies of books to people, you know, sort of, and they're anonymous sends.
Planting seeds.
And I sent a copy of Nicole's For the Love of Soil to this couple. And apparently they are now doing her courses. They were already on the sort of no-till path and doing a pretty good job as cereal producers, but now they're eating organic and and so, you know, that to me is going on the female point. It's not always that it has to be a female, but there's a perspective that female to female communication can have, which really I think is getting stronger, particularly when those females perhaps have been able to be mothers as well and have gone through. Not that that's all important, but they're able to get that cross empathy, which is really.
I would like to give a little plug for Carbon8 because we've actually just recently bought 180 books from Nicole to share.
Oh,
and yeah, so Carbon8, we have our we call our smart box, and I think it was like that well, you think about the food packages for farmers and food boxes going into mailboxes. Well, imagine if we could bring, you know, a smart box into a so we you know, I think probably, and we talk about how the aha moment for farmers is sometimes a lot when they actually read a book, and I think the book is actually really powerful. Yes.
Yep. For the love of soil.
For the love of soil.
Great piece.
Yep. And Gabe Brown's Dirt to Soil, I think, is a really good starting one as well, and of course Charles Massey's. So this idea of the concept of the book actually it's true. It plants that beautiful seed. It really does. It's really great.
Yeah. Good knowledge.
Yeah. And in Kiss the Ground, I think, sorry, Lisa, just quickly, in Kiss the Ground, you know, particularly Gabe Brown, his little story, there's a little section in that, and, you know, we could probably set aside, there's a few old white males in the film, but that's the nature of what we're working with, isn't it? And Gabe, I think it's true to say that Gabe has had some really wonderful outreach in the space.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what I was going to say, which totally is agrees with your point. You know, I always think that hopefully when people know better, they do better. And Gabe was in Kiss the Ground. That's what he said, you know. We were actually just talking, we've been up since 4:30 working at the cafe with our beautiful Italian chef, and he's just been up at his uncle's fruit farm, and he said, you know, this is a third generation fruit farm. His uncle spends $7,000 a year on worm castings and
worm juice.
And the neighbours spend $400,000 a year on ag chemicals.
Wow.
And you look at the
which
difference.
is not a big
It's not
spend.
it's not a high amount of money, but he was just saying they're similar size, properties, and he said just looking at them, they look totally different. And that's what, in Polyfaces, that's what Joel talks about, that, one neighbour is driving up past his farm, nearly 30 years, and seeing their farm. How can you not notice that it's this lush, beautiful, vibrant farm full of, life
and people
and energy, and he's driving up to his farm, which is totally overgrazed, and the plants sort of get this high, and spending $20,000 a year on vet bills and et cetera, et cetera. So, the old, you hope that when people know better, they do better. And when these seeds are planted, you hope that people start actually doing some of their own research, and hopefully it happens before any illness or before, a tragedy.
Yeah.
I
think you're... Sorry, go on, Darren.
I was just going to say that there's lots of different points of entry, which I think is emerging for all of this. And so that's why it's great that there's, how many regenerative agriculture podcasts are there out there, or within it, which is great. That means that there's lots of to run a podcast that's successful means that you have to have listeners. Otherwise you're just doing it for the sake of it. And so there's lots of that. There's lots of books. You just look at all of the stuff that's coming out. There's lots of media. Lots of people are making investments. And they're all different points of entry that people are coming to. So whilst of course there's a lot of people who will need something to go bang in their lives, as Lisa pointed out before, as Charlie Massey pointed out, for them to make a transition, whether as a consumer or otherwise. There's also that eating away as well that's going on as well, which is great, because there's a whole range of voices. And we have a section in our book, the Regrarians Handbook, which is getting there. We're just working on the 350-page soils chapter at the moment, which is...
Yeah, it's like the Bible. It's like the Bible of Regener8.
Your website's at the bottom of the screen for everyone to check out all the work you guys are doing.
In the climate section, which is the first chapter, we look at Everett Rogers' Diffusion of Innovation, and that book from 1963, and where you're looking at the innovators, and then the early adopters, and then the early majority, the late majority, and the laggards or recalcitrants, or people never come on.
They're calcified. They're calcified recalcitrants.
These are the sort of, to in some way encapsulate a lot of the discussion around, because this is a lot of our discussion is about how can we mainstream things? How can we pull all of this together? Well, we're at that point of 10%, which the organics industry has been at 10% for a damn long time in this country, of penetration, of acreage grown, of all of that. Because to get above that 10% means that you have to get into the early majority. And so all of the early adopter types, which is a personality type, all of the innovators and the early adopter types are taken up. But to get over into the early majority, and who then, once they take it on board, well, then the late majority will follow them. That's the big struggle, and that group is tied up by orthodoxy, and it's like the supermarkets, it's like everyone else. So that it's not like they're going to be given up too easily.
Yeah.
And they're institutionally held as well, because if you go to a university and study ag science, or you know that you're going to get a particular pathway of knowledge. And it's not going to include the stuff that we're talking about today, or the stuff that we will generally be talking about.
It's wonderful that Southern Cross have just launched their online regenerative ag degree, which is wonderful. Also, we've been working with, and Kiss the Ground have their own curriculum in the US, but in Australia, Kate Spry has a wonderful schools curriculum. So definitely, and the 100 monkeys will prevail.
Yes. Well, Kiss the Ground support Regrarians. They also, with their farmland program, so they they direct scholarships, farmer scholarships to us, and also to our partners at the Savory Institute, and also to the Soil Health Academy, which is led by the wonderful Ray Arcoletta, who features really heavily in the Kiss the Ground film, which is great because that gives, they understand really well that there's again a diversity of entry points for people. You've got to have those choices, so they're providing to the consumer through their soil advocacy trainings, which they're doing, which is amazing. I mean, when have people been generally advocates for the soil? Which is amazing. Just so you can have a better dinner party conversation, just so you can understand a bit better this foundation of all life. But then if you're a cereal producer in the US, then you can go and work with the Soil Health Academy, or if you're a grazier or someone who's into a bit more polyculture, then you can go to Savory or us and so on, because you need more farm planning advice. So it's really great that they've strategized in that way, and those courses that you mentioned as well. It's a really good point in time.
Well, it's interesting that, no civilization that has destroyed its soil has survived, but that's not really ever been a conversation, like a mainstream conversation. You would think that that would be part of history that we are taught. That, when you just destroy your soil, you don't survive, you collapse. But it's like that history never gets taught. That's the most important thing in our life.
Why do you think?
I wonder. You raised this before, Kelly. That there's only so much time left. I think this is a common narrative. It's sort of like an ongoing apocalyptic narrative, where the people have used that in the climate change debate. They've said that by this time, if we get to this ppm, then this will happen. There's a new narrative which I've seen over the last few years, which you'd be familiar with, that we have 60 harvests left.
It seems to be the same every year. We keep on.
I know. I actually get
also,
concerned by that sort of thing, because there's a repeat history that those timelines, when they get to the time, they don't actually, like Y2K. Everyone, shit, tomorrow, and so
yeah.
That's a narrative which I don't really like, and that was one of the ones that was in the Kiss the Ground movie. And I just wonder sometimes when you're doing that you're setting yourself up for a bit of a fail and a loss of credibility, which you just don't need to do. I don't think we need to do that. I mean, the story is great enough without doing it. It's not a really great. It's a fear tactic.
Well, Joel says something. Yeah, people are always asking Joel. What do you think is going to happen, or what can you see happening? And he said, I don't like to predict, because
I've got no idea. Well, it's good talking about what might happen, and I mean, I work in a world of scenarios as a planner, and you plan on best principles and all of that, and try and create a good foundation. But goodness knows, I mean, throw 7 billion balls up in the air and see what happens.
That's his Virgo Libra, and as a Gemini, I just say I have a deep knowing that it's all going to be great. So
yeah. So what does net zero emissions actually mean? Like, you think about, we always say, like, but we want high carbon. We're like we're the rock star carbon kids, So,
I've never liked that term carbon negative. I've challenged people about that, because it's like, we actually want carbon positive. And I get what the thing is, but we want to have a carbon negative economy. No, we don't. We want to have a carbon positive economy.
We want to have a friggin' carbon's life,
And people don't understand the physics of it. necessarily. They don't know that, there's the same amount of carbon in the world as there always has been, just like there's the same amount of water as there always has been. It's just in different states and it's in different places, to make it even simpler. So, it's just a matter of changing the position of things. And as we all know in this, that as you mentioned before about the 8% target, which is a really great target, I wrote a note about that earlier and saying that the other part about the 8%, which goes to your point earlier, Kelly, about drought proofing. I don't fundamentally agree entirely that you can drought proof by just doing the carbon thing. It's a bit more complex than that, but but when you get to 8% carbon, you're looking at the soil holding on to about 1.2 million litres of water per hectare.
Yes.
30 centimetres. So versus 1% carbon only holding on to about 156,000 litres. So that's an Olympic swimming pool and a bit more of water in every hectare that's being held in the soil solution. And going to that as well on the drought.
And maybe if people don't understand what that means.
Well, every unit of carbon holds on to an amount of water. And so if you're taking that carbon, which is currently in a gaseous form in the atmosphere, whether as methane or whether it's as carbon dioxide or whatever the C compounds are, and putting that into the soil, and then it's turned into a stable form of compound in the soil, well then it actually attracts water and it holds onto water. It doesn't matter if you've got 200 millimeters of rainfall on an area, it doesn't matter whether it's a sheet of concrete or whether it's soil. It's the same column amount of volume of water that comes down, which is 200 litres per square metre from 200 millimetres. So it's the choice of you as the land manager to have a concrete-like surface which repels that water either via evaporation or runoff, or that you absorb it. And if you absorb it, then what's absorbing it? Is it being adsorbed? Because there's adsorption and there's adsorption. And we're really into the adsorption because that means things stick together, right? To absorb is different to adsorbing. So it's very important. I mean, it's a very, there's complexity to this, but then there's also simplicity. And the late Paul Taylor, his company had a really great name, which was Trust Nature. And I thought that's a really, you don't need to, from my perspective, understand all of this. A lot of it's, you just need to trust that there's 4.8 billion years or 6,000 years, depending on your belief system, of track record here, either of which is a very long time. That is where nature's got it pretty well sorted out. We've just got to sometimes just understand that, trust that, understand it is incredibly complex. You're never going to be able to understand all of it, but we understand enough now to be able to do enough as managers to let it do its thing. And that's, and that's really liberating, I think.
Well, the truth is always simple, isn't it? Like the truth of all of this is very simple. It's actually getting back to that truth, which adds the complexity. So like it's, like we know everything about how this works is so simple. My job has been to take it and present it in like a sentence and the most simplified version. What's complicated is us basically going back there and changing our practices and changing our processes and getting back to that simplicity. It's a bit of a complex process. But like, my gosh, understanding how to go back towards the truth versus keep going further away from it is like infinitely different in its ability to be comprehended, because non-truth doesn't make sense. Our practices that aren't grounded in nature and truth don't make sense. So they're very freaking complicated to understand. And most people wouldn't understand them anyway, So, and like this whole paradigm we've had sort of sort of fighting for nature, but it being founded in fear, which is, like in the last couple of months in New York, they've got a clock now on one of the buildings, like a massive 10-year countdown clock that's now just ticking down the minutes to this 10-year apocalyptic climate change scenario.
Which will be causing
like
mental health issues.
Exactly. And that is not true, you know, like we can't get there through pushing fear. We can't get there from bombarding people into this state of hopelessness to try to motivate them. That's not the right path.
No.
The right path is to show life, is to show regeneration, is to show love and light. Literally, love and light is the language of regeneration. I mean, on a scientific level, on a metaphysical level, on a community level. Love and light is so simple as a concept. And that's what we should be sort of motivating people to move towards. But right now we're in that moment of that big bang for the whole world's going through that moment with cancer. You know, we're going through that moment going, oh my God, we've all got cancer. What are we going to do about it? You know, that's sort of like metaphorically where we stand today. We're totally acidic. What are we going to do about it right now? We have to alkaline en masse the whole planet. And, you know, I think it's really exciting times.
Well, I think the more complex the problems, the more simple the solutions. That's, you know, we've got all these crazy complex problems. And if we just bring it back to eating local from regenerative farmers, I mean, that's simple. What can you do today? Stop going to the supermarket, find a farmer's market, find a local producer, go and have a conversation.
Or just, I mean, you don't necessarily need to stop going to the supermarket.
One of our friends calls them
stupid markets.
Stupid market.
But
why do people have to go to the stupid market?
I mean, you can just be more discerning. Just turn the other side. If you need to wear some glasses, take a magnifying glass, read ingredients. Just become a bit more engaged with what you're doing. You don't. I mean, for a lot of people, it is a big shift. And so to just say, you know, to be absolutionist about it is too big. It's like transitioning for farmers. I mean, I was going to say before, Kelly, that, you know, one of the successes of modern agriculture has been its reduction in variables, and that's got to a serious point of success. If you just look at it from the perspective of, like here in Australia at least, we're able to grow cereals successfully on a third of the rainfall that we could 30 years ago, which is agronomic success, right? So when you look at the world through that lens, that's fantastic. And we, you know, a lot of our friends say who are in that space, we love chemicals, we love chemistry because it allows us to do certain things. It allows us to be in a regime of control, and that was the easy sell.
Well, there's also a narrative that goes with that.
No, I understand that.
That farmers think they have to feed the world.
Yeah, I understand.
And they, from their heart, you know,
absolutely.
They feel that deeply that they have to feed the world.
But then the dots are getting joined, however, when it gets to their own health, their own mental health, their own intestinal health, and all of these things, because no one's in a vacuum anymore. If you've got one of these things, which nearly everybody has, when you've got one of these things, you're not in a vacuum. And everyone's a mouthpiece because everyone feels brave on these things. So you never feel afraid to go and have the conversations that perhaps when you're in person, you wouldn't have otherwise. So it's an interesting way from that perspective, but it is something that I hear a lot of, that yes, it is to go and shift over to take on life and to embrace life means that you're embracing all of the variability of life as well. And for a lot of people, that's a hard ask. Yeah.
Or you just do what you can do today. Like, you know, don't put too much pressure on yourself to try and do everything. A girlfriend of mine, her mother was dying, and she said to me in hospital, this is probably 34 years ago, she said, I know why I'm dying because I expected perfection. I expected perfection from my children, my husband, my students, from myself. And she said, don't use perfect anymore. Take that out of your vocabulary, which I did. Now, to me, perfection is, brand new babies or an amazing little butterfly or a blue wren or, that's perfection. But you just do the best that you can, but start with one thing today, like,
Yep.
Stop buying toxic chemical deodorant. Stop buying.
Enjoy your aroma.
You can buy natural ones.
Just enjoy the aroma.
Well, come on, let's throw quickly ad lib some solutions here that people can deal with today. So obviously you can start your own backyard garden, no matter how much size or how small it is.
Throw out all the chemicals that you use to clean the house, because anything that smells, if you're smelling it, it's going into your lungs, into your bloodstream. So, check your ingredients. If they're not all natural, it's got to be an essential oil. Otherwise it's, probably toxic. So
Ruin an animal and love the smell of your partner. I mean,
The CSIRO actually did an experiment on that.
Oh yeah, that was great. I saw it.
Oh, really?
CSIRO did it.
They got a whole bunch of t-shirts. They got a whole bunch of people and got them all to wear t-shirts, and then they put them for a day or two, and then they put all the t-shirts in a pile, and you had to go and pick up a t-shirt and smell it. And some people went, oh, and then other people go, oh.
So they did matchmaking.
And they matchmake through the
pheromones.
And because the evidence there was that because people are masking through all of the deodorants and perfumes and all the stuff that we put on ourselves, medications, etc., they were masking their own natural pheromonic connections, which again are completely natural. I mean, I love the smell of that.
Thanks, Sweetie.
And I think she does me. So that's good. So we don't. But if we were to mask that, then we might uncover an incompatibility that may emerge later on, which was part of the experiment. But I think from an agricultural perspective, some of the small things that you can do is understand, maybe start to look at soil health. And there's some really great, I know the New South Wales government, there's a whole range of different government extension resources now on understanding soil health, which are really basic and great, and a whole family can do, so that you can do that together and get that check. Going on from that is understanding landscape function. People like David Tongway here in Australia started that. So that's where you're looking at very visual testing and analysis of how your landscape stability, how water infiltration is going, how ground cover is going, how biodiversity is going, those sorts of checks. Those sorts of things at an agricultural level are really anybody can do. You don't need a degree. You just need a set of eyes and a set of hands and just get out and about and start to pay attention to that. And then start to question your practices' influences on those sorts of things. And it's not start to be a bit easier on yourself when you get there too, because a lot of people are quite defensive, and I understand that. I mean, no one wants to be told that what they've done has been bad. That's not a good way. I think it's good to just give yourself the license to be better and to do better. And if you can just start with that, then away you can go from there.
I mean, our eyes are the best tools, aren't they? Like we can just go and look throughout our house and we can see where there's chemicals. We can see where there's things that aren't holistic or natural. We can go out into our backyards and see where the soil's thriving and see the sort of bird life we have. We can see so much with our eyes. It's our greatest tool. It's totally free. We've got so many great, there's so many amazing books and films. Like, okay, if you were to choose a couple of films outside of your own, which by the way, everyone, go and watch Polyfaces. It's fantastic. Yeah. We send it out in our smart box. It's the only film we actually send out in our smart boxes. Yeah. We love it. But if you were to choose any films to recommend to an audience today from your vast background in the field?
Farmer John.
Oh yeah.
I love Farmer John.
Farmer John, it's on our list.
That was one of my favorites. Yep, same. It's called for the audience. It's called The Dirt on Farmer John.
Dirt on Farmer John.
It's a great film.
And it is just gorgeous. I love it.
It's the Napoleon Dynamite of agricultural films.
I agreed.
I think we should screen that next month in November after yours. We'll screen yours and then we'll screen Farmer John.
Farmer John's beautiful.
It's a great piece.
Yeah.
I think I always liked Fresh. Is a film.
It's quite old.
It came out after Food Inc. and I thought it did a better job of Food Inc. Food Inc. was the classic doom and gloom and here's a couple. It was like the Inconvenient Truth style narrative where it's da 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 da, and here, by the way, buy a Prius and change your light bulbs. It was that kind of film to me.
Yeah.
Fresh had a lot more solutions. Again, it had a lot of people that weren't necessarily well known in it. And was a much more solutions-orientated film. I really like that. What else was it? The Farmer and the Prince. That's an interesting one. If you love Prince Charles, well, then it's a good one. But The Farmer and the Prince is a good one because, it shows someone who's been born of enormous, you might say the highest privilege, the Prince of Wales, and his attitude towards agriculture and his relationship to agriculture and how he sees agriculture's role in culture. I think, and a lot of people haven't seen it.
He's also always, been ostracised because of his, slant, his different sort of take on agriculture.
Yeah, because he's into organic agriculture, but he's, very influential in British agriculture as an organic farmer, and Patrick Holden is very close with him and so on. So that's a really great piece.
That was very interesting.
The Kiss the Ground film is I think a really great piece for people who are particularly consumers who are looking at an entry point to understand the sort of where the space is at the moment.
2040 shows us some great ideas, not great ideas, some great projects that are happening around the world.
2040 is a great one. They've been a great supporter of Carbonate. They really have, and we're really grateful to them.
Yeah, they are.
The other thing that we're planning to... Sorry, you go.
I was just going to say they're the ones that come off the top of the head.
Yeah.
I love the power of community. Did you see the power of community?
Yeah, we did see the power
about Cuba.
Yeah.
And then we went to Cuba. We were so excited. We were so excited to go to Cuba because of the power of community.
Yeah.
And then when we got there, it was like...
Yeah, a bit of Cuba washing.
We couldn't really see.
Cuba washing. Bugger. Not greenwashing, Cuba washing.
I mean, we adored Cuba, and the Cubans.
We had a lot of fun.
We had a great. It was amazing.
So much rum.
But and it had been, quite a few years in between, like when that was made and when we visited. So, and our daughter who went further north in Cuba said that there was, beautiful farms up there that they only used horses to run the farms, and there was a lot more.
But in terms of the urban agriculture, it wasn't. And we looked hard.
Yeah.
It wasn't there.
Interesting.
And we were in a... So anyway, but it's still a great narrative.
Yeah.
It's a great story. Yeah.
And I'm really aware that we've been talking for 2 hours. It's been amazing conversations. And it's been really...
He usually talks for 10 days straight, day and night. And then in his sleep. He talks in his sleep as well.
There's been a question from the audience that I'm just going to put there, probably our last question for the day before we round it up. So if you don't mind, Helen, I'll read it out.
Yeah, go.
You've been asked, you two, how do you deal with this if your family doesn't support your choices regarding regeneration?
Can I swear? No.
Yes. Yes, you can.
Well, I would suggest, which I've said to people, especially farmers who have said their dad or their brother or whatever doesn't want to come on board. I've said, well, just sit down and watch Polyfaces with them. Polyfaces is a really great film for the whole family, kids, through to grandparents. And when you sit down, most people want the same thing. They want to love their family and they want their family to be healthy. That's usually pretty common around a little global village. So if you just sit down, and I've always said, we have to have uncomfortable conversations. To see change, we have to be brave enough to have uncomfortable conversations and put your heart on the line and say, this is, you know, what I'm feeling, what my intuition's telling me, and what I think we need to follow as a family. I mean, I've had family sisters who married men who were not into eating the way that, you know, that we eat as a family. And one of my sisters is dead from cancer, and the other sister got cancer and has survived. But you know, you don't want to get sick because of the food that you're eating. So when your health is the most important thing, without health, you've got nothing. And you are what you eat, and you also are what you eats. So, you know, you have to look at that. You are what you eat. And how is that being raised? How is that being grown?
And the stress that those women were under too. I mean, one of them, you know, the lack of truth, as you put it, Kelly. If you're not living the way that you want to live because you're living in fear of what other people think, then that's, you know, stress is it's a major cause of illness. So
and I would also say get some community behind you. Because we have been, you know, living on the edge for a long time, and I felt that, you know, when we first had our first child, I felt on the edge. I felt like I was always defending, you know, the fact that I had a home birth, that I didn't vaccinate, that we only ate organic, that we grew most of our own food. And I was saying to an older woman, you know, I feel it's sad that it's exhausting. I'm always having to defend my choices. And to me, why? And she said, Lisa, it's lonely on the edge, but one day the edge will be the center. And she said, you know, you'll be there. And I think that's where we are coming to. This is now coming to the center. So get community behind you, even if it's online. There's lots of groups online. Join them so that you feel like you've got some support, and just bring things in slowly. Don't ask. Just bring in some free-range eggs. Bring in some sourdough bread. Bring in some organic oats. Like, just do it slowly and don't tell anyone.
Cook some bread. I was going to say, one of the things that I've learned, particularly through my engagement with holistic management, is conflict resolution, and some of the techniques that are used in that. And Lisa touched on it before, is trying to find some common ground. All right, and that might start with, we all breathe air. Right, we'll agree on that. Great. And you find something, and then you go from there. What are some of those commonalities? And when in holistic management, in that framework, there's the development of a holistic context, and one of the components of that holistic context is establishing a quality of life statement, and that's a really good. And it doesn't need to be done formally, and this is the thing, because sometimes when you're trying to do this formally, and I know people like Terry McCosker have found this, and a lot of holistic managers have found this, and they haven't necessarily dealt with it, where they're trying to put it into a framework, and people go, I don't want to do a bloody framework. But you don't need to do that. If you understand things, you can do that subtly, and you just, like Lisa said, start a conversation. And so, you know, say one night, you know, when the time is right, and that's part of it. And one of the things I learned in my formal hospitality training was something called control dimensions, and which is an extension of situational awareness, where there is a time and a place to have these conversations. It may not be after a long day or an early morning when everyone's stressed and there's lots going on. It may be when you say to dad, or, you know, or to your daughter or your son or whomever, let's go for a fish, and that's a good time. Or let's go for a walk, and that's a good time. Or let's have a beer, and that's a good time. You know, that there's times and places when you can open the door bit by bit and apply a bit of control to yourself. That's selfish, but it's, you know, it's a way of being able to broach these things, because some people don't have the emotional maturity. Well, it hasn't been developed well enough to be able to have those uncomfortable conversations without it actually being terminal for a while. And I think, you know, I know I'm guilty of that from time to time. Everyone would be, you know, but we need to understand as well with that for any relationship to be successful, the evidence is clear that it has to be framed within by a number of the conversations that you have in that relationship being disagreeable. You can't be just the one, and we know this, how many friends do you have where you've had beautiful times your whole life, you've had one bad word and that's the end of it. It's because it's never been tested. And that's a metaphor for what happens in nature. If it's, a nature that doesn't have challenge doesn't go anywhere. You can't have a bit of regeneration without a little bit of friction.
But
I'll leave it right there.
I would say cook up a meal using, spray-free, locally grown, organic produce, whatever, get some good organic rump steak and don't tell anyone, and then see if someone says, well, this is really good. So I tried this new, guy at the farmer's market, or I went to the organic butcher or whatever, go through their taste buds, or, cook an egg and wow, look at that color of that yolk. It's so orange. It's amazing. Oh yeah, I bought it from the people who do pasture-raised chickens. Like that's the way, that's another way that
we all eat. That's, if you don't.
And you'll start tasting it in your taste buds.
Yep. Taste buds always win the day.
Good meal.
Do you guys...
That's one of the things we do a lot of is food. To do that, I think it's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys have anything you'd like to plug before we wrap it all up?
Okay, so Polyfaces.
Yeah. Plugged.
Polyfaces. Creamtown is our daughter's online art shop, cream.town, and you're supporting artists that have been financially affected by COVID.
And if you're in Victoria outside of metropolitan Melbourne, then you can
come and visit us, because we're there nearly every day for 12, 13, 14
Where
hours.
is it?
It's Castlemaine.
What's the address?
325 Barker Street,
Castlemaine. Creamtown.
Right.
Everything's organic, spray-free.
The only north-facing courtyard in Castlemaine.
Yeah, we've got a beautiful
veranda,
corner.
Outdoors, gorgeous, lovely local timber tables that I fashioned.
And you can pat our beautiful little biodynamic puppy. He's been only fed his mama, who's our dog, is only fed biodynamic meat, and so he's our little biodynamic puppy.
Awesome.
We haven't infected
It
him.
should be your logo.
Well, you know what I'm thinking, guys? I think it would...
program, which starts our next 13-week online farm planning program starts on Tuesday.
For any farmers who are watching, this is amazing.
Yeah, so we do. So you join for a year, and it's $85 a month, and so we spread the cost out over the year, and you get to do 2 13-week online farm planning programs per year within that membership. So you can focus on different areas of your property in the different programs.
And Darren answers your questions.
That's my job. I answer questions. Ultimately, been doing that for a while. Yeah, so that's what.
How do people find that? How do people find your course?
Rex.
Bottom of the screen.
Rex.farm. And we've got over 2,000 farmers online from all over the world. So they
all help each other.
They all help each other. It's an amazing online forum for farmers.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Fantastic.
And I think what we could actually do, Kelly, maybe when we screen Polyfaces, we could have, why don't we have a chat afterwards? Do you want to do that?
Yeah, we love it.
How cool would that be?
Yeah, we could probably manage
That'd be fun. And you can
I could actually turn up.
Pardon?
I could turn up to the cafe. And,
yeah, you could do it at the cafe. That'd be so great. Yeah, cool.
Let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that. And then obviously we're going to plug our Kiss the Ground screening this Friday, 7 p.m. And then afterwards we've got a really awesome panel. But I think, check it out.
Charles and you two.
Oh, yeah, Charlie. Tammy Jonas. Tammy Jonas, who is, Tammy. Also Mike, everyone can get to meet Mike, my husband, and
Corey.
And Corey Hancock, the environmental cowboy. Yeah, so it's a really eclectic group of people, so it'll be fun. It'll be lots of fun. Bangkok, the environmental cowboy.
Awesome.
So
Okay.
we're also running the Carbonate Campfire Film Festival, which is an online, free online film festival where every Friday night we're screening basically any film that covers anything to do with regenerative agriculture and regeneration as a whole. And we're going to just keep running that eternally until we run out of films, basically. So so you can find the link on our Facebook page, and hopefully that is something that is really being enjoyed and utilized by people as we're sort of in this lockdown space right now, to use it to add to our education and knowledge around how to step forward powerfully into this brave new world that we're right on right now. Very exciting times.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you for the honour
So
of the
great.
first guests.
Yeah.
We're so
Very first, number one.
You're
Our
number
number one
one.
guest.
We're a mutual admiration society.
Well, thank you everyone for watching. This has been
Thank you
our
for
very
watching.
first podcast for Regener8. We go live every fortnight via our Facebook pages and our YouTube and alternative platforms on MeWe, and we will be seeing you in a fortnight's time. And thank you so much everyone today for watching, but for the Regrarians to turn up, we love you guys.
Love you
We
too.
love your film. And Miss McCosker, do you have any final words?
Yes, I am very proud of our 2-hour session today. I think we've covered some really amazing ground.
Almost 3.
Yes, 3 nearly. Yes, we've covered amazing ground, and it really is such a beautiful way for us to start our podcast, really nurturing. So thank you.
And great on you two amazing women for doing what you do.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Amazing.
Yeah.
We're all in service
Indeed.
to the great divine truth. Okay, everyone have a lovely day, and we
Happy
will
Wednesday.
see you in a fortnight.
Well,
Bye-bye.
ciao.